I think I watched the last 3 or 4 episodes in one night, and after that, I was super late. And the light down here was on, and I'm like, I don't remember turning on that light. And Katie was like, good luck. And I came down here, and these pieces of shit hanging are terrifying.
Yeah, well,
right?
yeah, because there's like just enough space in there for a man's head.
Yes, exactly. And so it's like, I know I'm being overly paranoid, but I got to grab a stick and hit those.
Welcome to the latest episode, if you're listening to this, and it is the latest episode of Rewatchers on the Pod. You're here with me, Tyler Harris, and
Riley Harris.
Tyler McKinley.
Justin Hammer.
And our special guest this week and media selector. I've never given that title to anyone before. It's you the first. Here we go. Dan Anderson.
Hello.
How are you doing, Dan?
Doing well.
Good. And Dan chose The Haunting of Hill House, the Netflix series, which I'm going to summarize for you. In typical fashion, no, this is a very atypical summary. In 10 sentences, one sentence for every episode, because we watched 10 episodes this week. It's the most episodes of anything we've ever watched in 1 week. Here we go. Haunting of Hill House. Stephen writes books he thinks are bullshit. Shirley is tired of all her sibling shit. Theo is really going through it. Luke gets clean and pieces out. Nell's life makes me really sad. Funerals bring out the worst in everyone. Trick-or-treaters are real pranksters. Everyone splits up so they can cover more ground. Moms really do worry about everything, and everything is a ghost.
That's pretty good.
Basically, that's 10 episodes of Haunting of Hill House, right? All right, yeah, that's about it. So Dan, why did you select The Haunting of Hill House?
I chose The Haunting of Hill House because I love a good adaptation. This is an adaptation of Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House. And it is I think, one of the best, if not the best, adaptation of book to other form of media that I've ever come across.
Oh, cool.
I was really worried when I found out that Netflix was doing a series of this, because there's been some adaptations of this already. There was a horrible film that was fun to watch. Like, the art direction was cool, but man, it was just a horrible plot that they did with like Catherine Zeta-Jones and Owen Wilson.
Oh
and,
my God.
Wait.
Or Luke Wilson. I can't remember.
Is that the same... Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Did you show me a scene from the original one time where like the doors rattling? I mean, that's every horror movie.
Yes.
I thought that was a different movie, but I didn't realize.
Yeah, I don't-
Well,
I
here's the
remember.
thing. The plot of this series is they took the plot of The Haunting of Hill House and completely ripped it apart.
Okay.
They completely took all the narrative, chopped it up, took all the characters and changed them completely. Like, you read this book, watch the series expecting to get the book, like, they're completely different. But they've taken all of the themes and a lot of the dialogue that they've given to other characters, or they put Shirley Jackson herself in as a character of Shirley.
That's why I wondered when I first heard her name, was like if that was supposed to be. Okay, interesting.
All the characters from the book are characters. Like, their names and their sort of identities and personas are in this story, but they've all become family members in this one central family going through this story. And Hill House is still Hill House.
Interesting.
So it was just... And you'll hear, like, throughout the book, throughout the series, there's all sorts of dialogue and narrative that's Shirley Jackson's words that are being put into other people's mouths.
Interesting.
That's why maybe sometimes you think, like, a character's like, wow, you're waxing really poetic in a weird moment.
Yeah.
That's usually Shirley Jackson's narrative. And so watching this, I was like, this is such a brilliant like deconstruction of something that is so wordy. Like Shirley Jackson as an author is known for creating beautiful atmosphere with her words. And they did that and were true to the atmosphere that Shirley Jackson created and completely reformatted it and created it around a narrative that worked for them in creating a miniseries for this type of medium.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That actually really intrigues me. And that actually, I feel like some of the things I felt were kind of weird about this show, that kind of explains them. And it makes me want to read this book, which this has been on my list along with another one of her books called We've Always Lived in This Castle, which I've just heard a lot about as well.
And Netflix just released, they just bought rights to a film production of the film. Sorry, what am I looking? A film adaptation of that story as well.
Oh, really? Okay.
So that just came on Netflix, and that's a much more straightforward adaptation.
Interesting.
But yeah.
Okay, cool.
Both of them are my two favorite Shirley Jackson books.
Really? Okay, cool. That is fascinating. Man, I feel like my mind has already been like twisted and warped already, which we just watched this final episode and I was already like I've changed. I feel like I've changed directions like so many times over the last hour. So yeah, but I'm really excited to talk more about that. So yeah, let's just get into it. I will say probably the first thing I want to talk about is we are adopting this into Twin Peaks shared universe, right? Oh. We watched all of Twin Peaks recently. We've built out an expanded universe that involves Halloween Town, some other things. But the reason that Haunting of Hill House will for sure be going into the canon of Twin Peaks is there is a Red Room, which is a huge thing in Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
And also Russ Tamblyn, who plays Dr. Jacoby in Twin Peaks, also plays a psychiatrist that speaks to Nell. He's Nell's psychiatrist. He also plays a character in Twin Peaks, and so that is enough for me to adopt it into Twin Peaks canon. Well, Justin actually found a fact right before we started watching tonight that I guess he was in like a film version of Haunting of Hill House from the 70s.
Oh, okay.
So maybe that was the more direct connection. But I was like, Mike Flanagan probably just fucking loves Twin Peaks because he's super cool like me. And he wanted to quit, like when he was like a psychiatrist, like, gotta get Dr. Jacoby in here. But that probably wasn't it at all. Anyways, so yeah, anyone opposed to adopting this into Twin Peaks canon?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, good. I just wanted to get that out of the way up top. Yeah, that's very important. Whoever is running our wiki page, first of all, I haven't seen it yet. Could you please make it live and accessible to the public? And also add that to the extended universe of Twin Peaks. Thank you very much. But yeah, let's talk about this. This show to me in watching it, man, I'm still like processing a lot of it. But one of the things that I felt watching it was it feels like so many different things. Like watching even just the first 5 episodes, I was like, this is like a pretty like straightforward horror thing. There are like these horror tropes strewn throughout it. It feels intense constantly. Like I am so on edge watching this. Mm-hmm. And then something happens the stuff with Nell happens at the end of that 5th episode where she is kind of falling through time essentially. And then I feel like from that point on, the show adopts this entirely new tone and structure, and it feels different to me. And then even in the last episode, like it's changing those tones. But I just kind of wanted to get like a temperature, like where are you guys at, like where your expectations were of what this show was before and where you're at now, having watched it? Because I've like all over the place with that, I guess.
You want to go first on that?
I watched the show over like since it came out. I've been slowly watching episodes of it, and so it's been a very like slow process for me. But I was definitely expecting like a scarier ending. I guess after episode 5, I was expecting things to get like scarier and more intense and more like ghost things, and to kind of dive more into what Hill House is. Mm-hmm. And was completely different than that, and I really enjoyed it though. It surprised me, and usually horror things don't surprise me, so that was fun for me.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I went into it expecting Woman in Black, the Daniel Radcliffe classic. You know,
very gothic, like horror, like imagery and stuff. At least for sure.
I mean, going in, I was expecting that, just more scary. And yeah, but I also started remembering that I heard people talk about it when it came out, that some people were saying that, oh, it's not really that scary. It's almost more of like a weird, surrealistic drama, which is true about it. I feel like there's a lot of things that you could kind of genre-wise, this kind of visits and tampers with a bit, even time travel a little bit.
Right.
But yeah, so my expectations were completely shifted after that first episode, and yeah, I liked it a lot. Like that first episode, I liked a lot more than what I was expecting. I was expecting to hate it, like I did Woman in Black, and I did. Yeah, I did not. I mean, I got a lot of varying opinions on it, but I'm sure we'll get into that. But yeah, it's definitely a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Justin? Did you? I feel like expectations versus what you got.
I think this is probably the most optimistic thing I've watched in a long time, which is so weird. Yeah. And that's weird because, like, after, I can't remember which episode it was, I remember telling Gwen the next day, like, I texted her, I was like, fuck this show. Like, and it's because I was terrified. Like, the most optimistic thing I've watched was also the thing that made me text my wife, fuck this show. Like, so the journey I've gone through this week, because I started watching these episodes this week. I watched all of them this week. I think some, like, you guys have been watching them kind of like last
I
couple
watched
weeks,
them
maybe.
pretty much all this week, too.
Okay,
like, mostly,
Yeah, and I didn't have any exposure to it before. My brother and my sister-in-law had kind of suggested and recommended that we watch it before, but I remember them saying that it was like, all I've heard about it was how scary it was, and so that was my expectation. And now, like, I was like getting emotional at the end of there, like, man, this is really hitting me hard. So
there's a scene at the end of the episode we watched tonight, the final episode, where I'm like, man, if my mom only saw this 4 minutes, she'd be like, I really want to watch that movie.
That is, yes. I could see your mom watching 4 minutes of the show and thinking that it was something she needed to watch. But yeah, I guess, Dan, what about if you can, like, go back to the first time you watched this, and being such a fan of the book and stuff like that, was it something that, like, once you were in, you're like, this is awesome all the way through, or did you have, like, I don't know, any of those moments?
I think, yeah. I mean, again, for me, this is sort of what I was saying when I joined you guys to talk about Krampus. I love anything that gets that completely throws me for a loop, even if it has weaknesses, or I don't necessarily love the final destination. If I'm not expecting it, then I'm so impressed by it.
Yeah.
And this did that for me. And so from the beginning, just knowing that, like, it was such a departure from the source material, but then even as the story progressed, like, it constantly surprised me in its own universe, in its own world. Sort of like what you were saying, like, it changes genre, or it's surprisingly optimistic in parts, and it just changes in ways that I'm not expecting it to. And I don't know. It kept me invested in wanting to see where I would end up, because I couldn't see that from the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. And that, like, for me, it was one of those things when I got to episode 5, which I'll say right now, I think episode 5 is my favorite episode of this show.
Remind me what one that
is.
It's
Nell's episode where
the pit neck lady.
Like, well, yeah, exactly. And that's the one at the end where she's falling through, like, all these points in history, and, like, to me, I'm like, this is where I think a normal horror show would end. Like, this might be the big reveal at the end, is basically just like, the ghost was her the whole time. you
Which
know,
is
and
sort of
that's
funny
it.
because that's sort of how the book ends. Like the house,
really?
the house sort of makes Nell go a little crazy, and they get her out of the house and put her in a car and say drive away, and she goes to drive away and drives into a tree and like dies at the house. And so, sorry, I guess I just spoilers.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
But yeah, so like that is sort of even where the source material sort of ends. It doesn't give you any sort of clean break. It ends very abruptly.
Interesting.
But this has things to say past that, which is sort of unique for something that is going for. I felt like it was going for more than being like, this is horror. You know what I mean? Even in how it was delivering the horror, like there's only like a couple of like jump scares, I'd say, in this.
Yeah.
Like there's that one where the two sisters are fighting in the car and Nell's ghost fighting. That scared the hell out of me. I like full on like clutch my pearls screamed. But there's most of it's just sort of building atmosphere and mood, the intention of this like family drama, developing this idea of like grief. You know what I mean? Which is such a weird place to explore horror.
Yeah, for sure. And to do that, like the way that's described, I feel like there is a lot of gothic horror. You know, I think of like, oh my gosh, I just blanked on it. Shit. Anyways, there's gothic horror. No, but there's one that this woman is working in a hospital. I'll look it up. Anyways, but I feel like a lot of the tone of that is slower. It's like more dramatic, and there's not as much happening. Whereas this, it maintains a lot of that tone, but I constantly felt like something was going to happen. You know what I mean? It like did that. It like almost turned that up to a level where I was just so tense for so much of that show.
Turn of the Screw, is that the one you were thinking of?
Yes, holy shit,
Well,
yes.
that's the next one that they're adapting. That's going to be their because they were renewed, and I was like, oh crap, they're going to try and like make this family come back for a new thing, but they're adapting another horror story into another series.
Okay, we were looking that up right before this, and I was like, I know I recognize this name. Okay, absolutely. Okay, I'm very excited for the next season of this show. Actually, yeah.
As someone who's a big fan of the original source material, are you involved or keep up with any like fan bases online or anything like that, or do you hear kind of, at least through the grapevine, how the general fan base of that feels about this show?
To an extent, I mean, because it is an older book, like it's not a more recent novelization, and so I don't know, older authors don't tend to have as many like fan clubs around it and she wasn't someone that wrote so prolifically that she has, you know, I don't know, like I don't know, it just doesn't feel like there's as many vocal people about it. But from the things that I have come across, people have been divided. Some people have loved the changes. Some people have thought, well, this isn't the novel. You know what I mean? And so, but I guess maybe coming from a theatrical background where there's so many theater projects that I've worked on where they've wanted to, you know, cut and paste things and do a what's the word I'm looking for? Not an abstraction, but like a well, I'll go with that one. Abstraction, like an abstraction of source material. Like I guess I was just ready to go along with that because it was more exciting to me them being true to the spirit of the novel than trying to, you know, do something accurate and like completely to the letter. Because they tried to do that more with that Catherine Zeta one, even though they put in a couple of weird things to make it more like action adventure-y.
Yeah.
But like, man, it was just awful.
It's blowing my mind, like after watching this, that there's a movie with Catherine Zeta-Jones and Owen Wilson that sort of follows the same story as the
I can't believe I thought we talked about this movie before.
We might have
you seen,
I don't know.
There's like a clip that's really famous from it where he's in like a big fireplace and this lion thing comes in and like takes off his head. Have you ever seen...
that sounds so familiar, but I can't like see it. You know what I mean? Like
it's just called The Haunting. And
it's called The Haunting.
Okay,
that's right.
Owen Wilson, Qui-Gon Jinn,
Liam
Neeson. I'm glad you said it because that's what my mind was thinking. I was like, it's not Qui-Gon Jinn.
Jedi Jesus is in a haunted house with the girl from Zorro.
This is the worst joke I've ever heard.
Awful.
It is.
It's pretty bad. I was really confused by it too. I was pretty young when I saw it too, so I didn't quite understand. I remember it how my younger self remembers it. So I'm pretty sure there's a scene where like a ghost rapes a woman, she becomes pregnant. It's like this Rosemary's Baby thing. Don't quote me on that one.
Yeah, that's some of that stuff they sort of added. That's not in the novel.
Shoot. Man, that is wild. Well, I'm glad this adaptation feels, at least sounds better than that one was. But I will say, like, this show too, I feel like because it does like shift so quickly, it is one of those things that like we were talking about already. I'm like, I feel like I'm gonna have to watch this like a second time because I already know there's so many things. Like I was picking up on a lot of things this first time through. Like it's not a show that's like goes out of its way to be confusing.
Right.
Like it definitely doesn't do that. But there's just so much happening and like of them like kind of connecting these scenes in ways that you wouldn't expect, that I'm like, okay, now I really need to go back and kind of look for more of these connections. And I'm sure that I will see a lot more of that. But it was one of those things. So since it was my first time watching it, there were some really high highs for me and some like moments that were like really low lows, I feel like as well. But I want to talk about, some of the performances because I think there are some pretty strong opinions in this room on performances. But I do want to call out the first, like the actress who plays Nell, whose name I remembered until I was going to say it. I think Victoria Pedretti, I believe. This was like her first film role apparently.
Oh, really?
And she was like one of my, I think probably my favorite performance in this show.
I think she's one of the strongest.
Yeah. She's really wonderful, and I just enjoyed all of her stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Were there any performances that you guys like in particular loved or like did not love, like stuff like that we can talk about?
I had a problem honestly with a lot of the acting, and it goes kind of moment to moment. It's not like a blanket across the board for every scene and every line. I think. And I honestly, I mostly felt it was a directional issue from the director, where I don't know, maybe he was so focused on all the badass production stuff they were doing in this that like
really cool
that he wasn't focusing on getting enough takes. Because there's some deliveries that I'm like, that is not good, but then like 2 scenes later, that actor will be fine, and. So yeah, I had more of an issue with directing. I have no one in particular I want to like call out. I guess I do think that there are ones who are stronger. I think once again the actress who plays Nell muscles through that a bit better than other people. I think both the actors who mostly the older dad is really good, and is her name Gina? She's the girl who's in all of the Frank Miller adaptations, the comic book adaptations.
Oh, Carla Gugino.
Carla, yeah.
Yeah,
Not great.
That's my biggest problem watching this is I felt like her, especially in the role of a mother and talking to her kids, it didn't feel good to me. Like it just didn't feel like they're being portrayed as like this very close knit and loving and just happy family, and like the way they talk to each other, it just didn't feel like these kids knew who their mom was. I don't know.
She feels very pretentious and like condescending to everyone she talks to, and she doesn't come off as the warm motherly figure that like they wanted the picture to be painted of.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think a little bit of that's the actress, but I think once again some of that's the dialogue she was given as well as the directing.
Yeah.
But she was definitely the weakest link. I think. Yeah, everyone else. There's no one in particular for me.
Yeah.
I think that could also. Sorry,
No, go on.
I was just gonna say. I wonder how much of that is the interaction between the kids and her too, because I feel like her role when she's with like her husband, either the younger one or the older one, I feel like those moments are actually stronger. And so maybe it's just like her interactions with her children that it just kind of falls short for me.
Well, which is funny because I I can't think of a lot of things I love Carla Gugino in, but I actually really I like her performance in this. I don't know. It's just something about this one that like was good. But I had kind of the same like dialogue thoughts through this, and hearing you talk about kind of the adaptation of this and where they went, I'm like, that stuff like starts to make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
And it also is one of those things where I'm like, man, before I watch this again, I do want to read the book and like kind of feel that a little bit more.
And I think that's where I have my blinders on, where I think all like issues of like stiltedness of like dialogue or performances, whenever actors were given things to say that were clearly like things Shirley Jackson had written rather than things that were natural for them to say.
Right.
I had these blinders on where I was like, oh, cool, they used like dialogue from the book. Like I remember reading that. Yeah. Like when Lucas or Luke first like woke up in the Red Room in this episode we watched, and she was talking to him, and then she went on this big monologue about like this house with the roses and all this stuff.
Yeah.
That is something that Nell in the book imagines to herself as she's driving to Hill House for the first time in her idyllic home. And so that, like, I was watching it and thinking that this time through, I was like, that is such a weird piece of dialogue to put there.
Yeah.
And then to segue away from and not really do anything with.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know. If you love the book, I just get so excited. Like, I'm like, yes, they used that part.
I'm definitely also glad that you said something about that, because that was something that really, really bothered me.
Yeah.
And I think there's still occasions where I think it does a little bit, even knowing that, but I think that makes...
It makes more sense.
It makes more sense, and it makes some moments stronger for me that I'd probably have to go back and rewatch.
Right.
And for me, I think, just rewatching this episode tonight, in a lot of those monologues that I have problems with, I'm actually pretty fine with them until there's always just a point that it's like it pushes it too far.
Yeah.
And the one that really got me tonight was the one where towards the end, the father and mother are talking to each other, and then it's like this really tense like conversation, and it feels really real and raw. And then it gets into this moment of she starts talking about stars exploding in space. I was like, get the fuck out.
That was the bridge too far for
I was like, oh, this is the Sociology 101 class that I want out of. Please.
Yeah, that and it's one of those things, kind of think of this as an adaptation too. Like, that isn't something that I feel like is praised in a lot of adaptations, is the idea of actually capturing the spirit or feeling that you might have, being able to translate that across mediums. And so to hear you talk in that way about that dialogue and some of that stuff, that seems like praise to me, right? Is that like something that you would say? Like,
yeah, I mean, for me at least, again, I totally have this one side of the coin where I listen to that and I'm like, ooh, that was a little clunky.
Yeah.
Or where like that felt like that performance didn't match, and whether that's the direction or the acting or the writing, like that has problems. But I can so easily like jump on board and get excited and admire the fact that they're doing that.
Yeah.
That they're taking author's words and the way that they're evoked and the emotions that go with them, and they're putting those on screen, and those are similar atmosphere and emotions, but they're being told differently. They're being told through, because they have to be. You can't evoke emotions in the same way on page as you can with dialogue, actor to actor. But you can evoke those same emotions in a different route. So going at it indirectly, getting to the same place, I think is a cool thing to explore.
Right. Yeah.
So I think it's rad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad I know that now, because that's a super cool way to do an adaptation, especially an adaptation that's been done before and kind of failed before.
We're cutting the lion part. We're not putting the ghost pregnancy in.
We're not casting any of the Wilson brothers.
Someone was like, we're cutting the Rose monologue, and someone was like, fuck no, we're putting that in. I don't care what. I'm going to find a place.
Cup of Stars. Did you notice all the Cup of Stars references in this? Yeah. Like, that's a big part early in the book. Like, and so they put it all over this damn thing. Like, there's Cup of Stars, like, everywhere.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, man. Okay. The other thing I was thinking as I was watching, because we watched a big chunk of these today to kind of like finish up. I'm going to make a weird... I think it's a good connection, but I haven't talked about it out loud.
Bracing for it.
Honestly, in the 9th episode where we kind of get to see the mother's... We get to see the mother's kind of whole story at the house, and we're with her that entire episode, I believe. The thing I kept thinking about was Arrival. Because the mother's thought process in this is this idea of like protecting her children or waking them up from this pain, from this sorrow. And she like kind of the big moment for her is seeing Nell on the table, on the slab at the mortician's. And then she also sees Luke kind of passed out and in his vomit or whatever. But she then basically makes this conscious choice to prevent that and to protect them from that experience, where I'm assuming everyone here has seen Arrival. I'm about to spoil, like, I guess the moment in Arrival. Have you seen Arrival?
It's one of my favorite films.
Okay, great. Okay. But the whole idea in that of that reveal where she basically gets to make the decision on if she has this relationship and has this daughter who she knows will die, will have, will get sick and die very early in her life. And instead decides that is the experience is the important part of that. And kind of the thing that the father in this finally does in the final episode when he talks to her is like this whole idea of like, there was a lot of bad shit, but I also got to see my daughter on her wedding day. I got to see how those things played out, and that was like what made it worth it. But anyways, that was just the thing I thought of that I didn't, again, not a thing I expected to think about going into this. Kind of this idea of the experience of life, this very like existential question of like, is the pain worth it? Is that... I don't know. It's just, it evoked a lot of those feelings and thoughts in me that I just did not expect to see going into this. But yeah, I don't know. Were there any like thematic things for you guys that you like that stuck out to you or grabbed you in any ways, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, you keep saying everything I want to say.
Oh, sorry.
That's really fun. I feel like you're saying all the things I love about the show, so all much of the things I don't like. So it sounds like I hate the show. Something I do like totally about the show, I do appreciate how they structured this, how each episode kind of follows a character, and sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't when they do that in a TV show.
Yeah.
This works really well because it reveals the right amount of information in the right order so it flows really nicely. And we get the answers we need at a good pace. I feel like there could be a temptation with this show to not give as many answers as they do. And maybe it's just that I'm getting lazy, but I'd like that they did that. Yeah. I like that they gave us pretty much everything. And I also, I don't know, I like that they did change my expectations a bit. They used a lot of horror tropes that are used in everything, down to the child drawings,
right? Yeah.
Multiple times. I think they went to that well twice. And
it's a deep one. Kids are drawing a lot these days.
And I was like, there was a lot of things I'm like, oh, I know exactly where this is going, and I was absolutely right. Yeah. And then there were times where I'm like, I know where this is going, and I was so wrong. And one of those things once again, I keep drawing back to that same stupid Daniel Radcliffe film, because that was so much my expectation was, if I remember correctly, at the end of that movie, it's like, oh, the whole time this asshole ghost was actually the good guy who was trying to help us solve a murder.
I honestly don't remember.
I felt insulted, and I was worried for the first half of this season that's what we were gonna get. Up until it was revealed that Nell was the bed neck lady, I was like, I just remember watching it with my wife, and I was like, why are ghosts such dicks to children? Like, A, why are they just dicks in general? B, to children, never to the adults, until like they kill them. And yeah, I was just like, this better not be the thing where it's like, oh, the ghosts are just really good guys helping them realize something about themselves or anything like that. And I did find it fascinating how it was like, there's more than one ghost who had different motivations. There was kind of one who was kind of the big bad, but there were more layers to it than just being the bad ghost, you know?
Right.
And that was really satisfying to me, and how the ending, especially with the house being almost this positive, it's really fucked up. It's like
weird. Yeah. Yeah.
The house is evil. I feel like there's no question that the house is an evil place still.
It's
at the
just
end.
hungry, Tyler. We all get hungry sometimes and need families.
Come down to Jim's family restaurant.
We got big families, small families, dysfunctional families. Those are really popular.
But yeah, the house is evil, but also it is this thing that some people still need.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to connect with that in some way. Even if some parts of that were presented a little clunky at the end for me, I still resonated with it, and was still like that moment where the groundskeepers like brings his dying wife to the house is kind of like, and maybe it's just because I'm married now and I have a family of my own, and it's like that I'm a sucker for that type of stuff. But that like hits me. Something I was really glad that didn't happen, that I thought was going to happen, was they spent a lot of focus on the fucking mold. And I was worried that I was like, there are no ghosts. This is a hallucinogenic mold.
Oh no!
That everyone
Like
just
the happening, right?
Yes.
and I was like, if that's where this show goes, I'm gonna be so mad. And whoever our guest is who picked this,
He's got all this,
Explaining to do.
like the final episode is just like them being observed by doctors running around this house, like be like, there's one. They've been crazy and hallucinating the whole time.
but yeah, a lot of weird, a lot of ways of subverting my expectations in good ways, I think, and strong choices. This show took a lot of risks, which I'm really appreciative of. And I think a good 80% of them paid off for me.
Yeah.
And in weird ways. I think the end is so bizarre and so uncomfortable in a weird, but also in like a very pleasant type of, I don't know.
It's weird.
I'm very conflicted about it.
It's a show where it's like they basically like give you all the answers. They spend a lot of time at the end talking about like all this stuff, but then they don't necessarily, like you were saying, it doesn't necessarily fall in like the camp of like, this is the good stuff, this is the bad stuff. It's like, this house means a million different things to anyone who is there.
They wrap it
involved.
up nicely with a bow, but they don't tell you what's good or bad.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't moralize too much on it.
Yeah.
Which I like.
Yeah.
Something that did confuse me, and I'm still upset about, is the mom's still crazy. It seems like she still seems psycho, and he essentially has to be like, I will kill myself for you to free our children. And then he dies. He's like, now I'm going to go spend eternity in this house with this crazy ass ghost. Happy family hug. And then as the door's shutting, she's just got eye
That's true.
contact.
That's the eyes thing is that is creepy. You know, ghosts can still learn. Ghosts are still imperfect. They're imperfect beings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Let's talk production design, because holy shit, I really love that house so much. We were kind of going back and watching some of this. So if you've watched this or whatever, and you don't know about and no one's told you about the ghosts in the background of every scene that once you see will really fuck you up, like go on IMDb and check some stuff out. Ask your friends, because we were just going back and watching some of those scenes and being like, that's a man's face in the ladder. Fuck this. Like,
Not
that
even
is-
like tiny or like far back. Like there's scenes where you're like looking at it again and you're like, oh my gosh, there's a ghost standing right there.
In the center of the room.
Yeah.
But even I was just that scene where she does like that Theo, I believe. Yeah, Theo goes down into the basement and she finds like Luke, the fragment of Luke's shirt. Even just like looking at that basement, I just couldn't help but be like, man, the like set dressing for this is so good. Like that space, I want to be in that space so bad. But yeah, that entire house, like the feel of it, the look of everything is fantastic. It really is amazing. And I think like is one of those things that helps this show to throw you for so many loops because it feels like the best version of like so many horror things. But even in the production side, you know, we were talking about that, like it is this thing where it's like horrifying, and then it's just like beautiful and like big and grand, and it just feels like a thing that serves to like reinforce what this show is saying about grief and trauma. I don't know. It's one of those things. I really feel like this show has just all of these elements coming together to make something that's greater than the sum of all its parts. And it's really beautiful and really great.
They do a lot of great things with editing and their cinematography in the show as well. I mean, even down to like just the nitty gritty of like color correction and all that stuff in this show is really, really well done. The editing, especially of where we have shots of what is her name, the bad ghost. I'm so bad with names.
Oh, the flapper one, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Starts with a
I don't know
P,
the
something.
names.
Pepper.
It might be
Pepper.
something like that.
Something pepper. I don't know. Something like that.
But anyway, they'll have shots of her, you know, talking to the mother, and it'll cut to like what they're seeing. They'll cut back, and she's like just rotting, but she's also like out of focus. And then it cuts, but it's only for like a split second. There's a lot of stuff like that that is really interesting and really fun. That they do, and just the editing flow of all this I really love. We get to that episode 6 where it's the Birdman episode and everything's done in this pseudo one shot. And I at first I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be a fan of this. I think by the end, I think I really enjoyed how they tackled that. They took that challenge and they went all in on it, and I think it paid off.
Is that the episode with the funeral and the?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Birdman. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was like, I don't remember a bird.
The bird. You didn't see the Birdman in any of the episodes. You need to go
Pay
back.
enough attention.
No, I had that same reaction. Like when that episode started, I was like, oh, this is like the episode. They're like, we're gonna do the gimmick. We're gonna do a gimmick, and it'll be this cool thing. And like for the first little bit, I was like, okay, I don't understand why they're doing this. Is like not that exciting. It's like, I guess it's cool blocking. Like if you were there shooting this, that'd be cool. But the moment that I was like, okay, this is pretty good, is when the dad comes in and it's a shot of him, and then the camera rotates around him and you see all of his kids, and it's the child actors.
Yeah.
And then it continues to rotate around, and then the next time it comes around, it's all the adults. And I was like, okay, yeah, that was like a real moment for me where it was like, it felt so so visceral, and it just felt like it was serving everything around it. It was really good.
It also fits tonally with that episode because everything becomes so chaotic. The tension starts building up, and that one shot builds that tension as well as constantly moving, and it moves more the more crazy it gets. And it really flows with the narrative, which is, thank you, people behind the camera. Like the production of the show is probably, I like a lot of things about the show, but that's probably one of my favorite things.
Yeah, it's really good.
I think tonally too, like that feels like the turning point in the series where we really start to loosen our grip on time. You know what I mean? And I think that back and forth and the way that they looked at that with all those choices in doing the, like you said, like the pseudo one shot and everything, like I think that idea of blurring the lines between reality and time, and I think it's good that it landed there because then it really started going off the rails after that point, and I think it set that up nicely.
Yeah. And also I think one of the impressive things about that too is like thinking about, they do a lot of the same things that they do in the show normally that they would normally do with like an editing trick or a cut, where there's like things in the background are shifting, and they do that in such a smart way where it's like there's still things in that I'm like, oh man, how would they have done that? You know what I mean? But they're still achieving like that same atmosphere and ethos of like, you're never quite sure what is happening outside of the frame of the camera. And that episode, I think, reinforces that idea even further because the camera's not turning off at any point. It's just always in that space. And it's really, really interesting.
I also try and think about that episode without the one shot, if it was just shot normally and cut, and it would, after that, I was like, that's kind of what sold me. I was like, this would not be as strong. The flow would feel weird. It would the impact wouldn't be there. I wouldn't be as invested and emotionally strung along as much as I would with this one shot. And so, kudos to them for making the right choice on that.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, that was a really cool episode. Riley, were there any like characters or anything for you like thematically that I know you kind of watched this over a long this show has been in your life in a weird way for a very long time. You finally got closure tonight, really. Yeah. You watched this as if it was 10 Marvel movies released 6 months apart from each other. This was your Avengers. Tonight was your Avengers, where it all kind of came together. It was. But yeah, was there anything like that kind of stuck out to you that way or anything?
I think I really loved like all of Luke's scenes. Like as a child, he was my favorite child because he's the cutest thing I've ever seen in my life. But then as an adult, like he still carried a lot of that like childlike innocence, but he was just like trapped in this like really dark like timeline, I guess.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of cool like seeing him like go through the grief of losing his twin and then deciding like, oh, I'm just going to burn this house down and kind of starting the whole process of like getting closure on that. And I really enjoyed that. And I really loved episode 9. Like, I think it just,
the
being able
episode.
to see like the mom's whole side of everything and kind of seeing how that ghost's name was Poppy Hill.
Poppy.
That's right. Yeah.
And kind of being able to see how she was able to manipulate Olivia in so many ways and kind of change how she was thinking and really just get in her brain and ultimately like kill her. And then even after death, still being like, oh, he stole your kids. He made their lives terrible because he took them away from here. Like, it was just kind of cool seeing that whole process happen. Because in the beginning, you just see a snapshot and you don't really know what's happening. And I think I was expecting it to be like the mom to kind of turn into this monster or be possessed in some way.
Yeah.
But it was a different sort of, it was just like a manipulation. It wasn't as much of a possession, I guess. And I thought that was cool.
That actually is an interesting moment when Poppy is talking to the dad and you basically see Olivia, I think it's her name, the mom being like, get come on, just get out of here. And she's like, well, I was just doing like the ghost. You should get out of here. Just doing the ghost thing I always do. On a side note, man, something about the way that women from the 20s are portrayed on screen, particularly the way they speak, I'm really into. I don't know what it is, but like the first line she said, she had some kind of like weird, just lost turn of phrase that I was like, let's bring it back. And have everyone say it.
At one point, I think she said the twins were the elephant's eyebrows. And I was like,
that was so good. I was
fun.
like, marry me. Gosh. Have my crazy children. Yeah, what a fantastic thing. Also, in talking about Luke, I just had a realization. I think Luke is an absolutely adorable child. I think it's because his eyes are just magnified. Like, his eyes are larger than they should be because of those glasses. And it's like, is it just because he's close, like, he's closer to an anime character than any real life person is? Is that it? I don't know. They're like, anime's kind of adorable, right? I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
It's just so vulnerable because his eyes don't work at all. To protect him.
I do also want to point out the actress who plays young Theo is just typecast into playing younger versions of adults you see in the same movies.
That's true, right?
Yeah, because she's in Captain Marvel. She is young Carol Danvers, and she is also the young Tanya Harding in I, Tonya. I can't remember if there are any other ones. But
she also does a lot of like
out to
horror
me.
stuff too. She's Sabrina in the Netflix adaptation.
Oh,
of
is that her?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then she's
Really?
Isn't she?
Isn't that
who?
I thought that was
No, that is someone different. That is
you know what? Okay,
yes,
that might
the girl from Mad Men.
That might actually still help with your point. I think she's the young version of Sabrina. In
Which
earlier
totally
seasons.
makes she looks so much like her. Like, I would absolutely believe that.
Yeah.
But if you need to portray an adult in a younger form, probably most preferable, like that is a woman. You need a young girl. Call her. That she loves it, I guess. But yeah, is there any other... Justin, do you have any other thoughts on Hill House? you wanna
So
share?
the scene that made me text my wife,
Oh, yeah, I do want to hear what this is.
this is one of those things where I went through the roller coaster watching this scene because it was a scene where young Luke, he wakes up and he hears noises and he opens the door and you see that tall ghost, the floating tall old man. Mm-hmm. But this is the first introduction to him, I think, if I remember right. And the way that he moves, it just is it's very uncanny. He just kind of he's going in, looking in those rooms, he has the cane that he hits on the ground and he's just floating around. That really messed me up. And he goes in the room and then it's just him looking for his hat. Just in this one moment, I'm going from, this is fucking messed up. I hate this guy to, oh, this guy's just looking for his hat. He's an old man. Of course he needs his hat.
There is the moment towards the end of that, as he's leaving the room and then, Luke does make a noise, and just those floating feet turn around, and there's something about the sound that is used there too. It's just whoa! You're fuck! It really is.
If
terrifying.
I was an old man, I'd go look underneath the bed too if there was something breathing under there.
That's now every time I go back to my apartment after I've left my keys in there on accident, I just imagine that there's a being much smaller than I am that's just fucking terrified that I've returned unexpectedly.
You have to take into account he also has ghost Alzheimer's, so he's forgotten that there's children living in his house.
That explains the scene with him at the end, right? Because that was a little confusing because he's staring down the oldest son, and I was like, what's going on here? But if he has Alzheimer's, then he's just of course, he's just trying to remember what's going on.
The ghost design in this is really cool too. And it's one of those things. That is one of those things where there's stuff like the old man with the hat. I don't remember if that's described if we hear the name of a man that lived there before or anything.
I think he was. Yeah, I think he was the one who bricked himself into the wall.
Yeah,
because Poppy tells us
okay.
she's going through all the rhyming stuff, and she talks about the guy who became tall or something.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, and you sort of hear in the story that Theo's girlfriend was when she was in the Red Room.
Yeah.
She's telling a story that sort of elaborates on that a little bit more too.
Right.
Yeah, and so you sort of get the idea that that's the same person.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, I really do love how these things are all tied together. Those sequences in the Red Room too are really fascinating to me. Because I love Red Rooms because of Twin Peaks. That's the only reason why. No, but seeing those scenes play out, I don't know. There's something about that last hour, and even if you do those last 5 minutes that feel so cathartic and freeing in a really effective way, that I didn't necessarily expect to feel, but especially in the conversation, the lead up to that conversation that Shirley is going to have with her husband, whose name I can't remember, but I don't know. I feel like that last Kevin, yes. His name is said a lot. Yeah. His name is said an inordinate amount of times for a human. Everyone's just Kevin. It's like Home Alone. Anyways. But there is something about the construction of that episode that I feel there was this really interesting catharsis and this show does end with a call to action kind of the idea of freeing yourself of these hauntings in your life and stuff, which is again, it's one of those things if you tell me that's what this show's about, I'm I'm not that interested.
Yeah.
But it works so well. I don't know. I'm still kind of wrapping my head around how crazy this show is, how much it changes and how much it subverted my expectations for sure.
I couldn't help but draw parallels the whole time to Arrested Development.
I'm listening.
Well, it's shitty season 4 where they try and do the whole each character has their own episode.
Yep.
That kind of did it, and then just the family dysfunction.
Yeah.
And everyone's interactions, and we always see each episode as the same moment just from a different point of view.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
it's like the whole time I was just thinking, now the story of a writer who tries to save his family. But the thing where this succeeds, where season 4 of Arrested Development does not, is it never betrays its characters, and each character gains something by having their own episode, as well as in that final episode where it all comes together. With each of those scenes, we do have them confront their biggest problem, and some of them are stronger than others. I think Luke's is probably my least favorite in that last episode. It doesn't feel as... It feels like he's already beaten his demons, so to speak. He's just kind of a victim at this point, almost. Whereas everyone else has stuff to kind of resolve, which is a little more interesting. And even though I really liked Luke's journey to there, which is interesting, because Luke was one of the characters who I think I hated at the beginning the most, just not from like a writing standpoint, just as like
Right.
I was like, yeah, Steven, kick your brother out of here.
And then like an episode later, you're like, fuck, Steven, what is your problem, dude?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a fun part about this show is things you can identify about yourself through it, things you can connect on with all the family drama and just the internal struggles everyone's having, as well as just getting thrown for a loop on whether I like someone or not in this show.
Yeah.
Theo, I'm looking at you. At first I was like, I hate Theo, and I still kind of do, because like her, I felt like they tried a little too hard. I'm like, I'm the edgy character, and then after her, like the third episode that focuses on her, I was like, okay, now she's simultaneously the person who I like the most and hate the most. And then I just felt like that whole touch thing kind of was a really interesting concept that didn't have the payoff I wanted it to at the end. Sorry, I'm kind of all over the place. I'm like trying to vomit all this out. But I keep remembering other things, and that was one of them that I was like really interested to see where that goes. And it never really came into play in the way it did. I wasn't really satisfied with the thematic turn they tried to make reveal of like, I just wanted to feel something, so I touched your husband in the dark. Also something while I'm on these things
I'm
that like
fine with it. I don't know.
bother me a little bit. The certain characters, when they see ghost shit, they're like, holy shit, what is wrong with me? Other characters who have no history of seeing ghost shit see ghost shit, and they're like, guess I'll go to bed now. And like the oldest sister who owns the mortuary, she especially, like, she sees her dead mother on the table, like rising up, and she's like, all right, closing up shop. That was weird.
Okay, I will say that I do want to mention this about that. I mean, I don't on a day-to-day basis, I don't think I could be a mortician, but like, it's never something that I think like, oh, I couldn't be a mortician. After watching this, there's no fucking way I could never be a mortician. Like, there's that scene that like, we see this in tons of movies, but something about the way it's depicted in this, especially with Nell, where she just pulls a trash bag out of her chest, is like, well, here's a bunch of like organs and shit, and then it's just like in the trash. I could never be a mortician. I don't ever want to be a mortician. I don't ever want to touch dead bodies. Just in case. That's for future employers. Listen, I'll take the money, but I don't want to touch any dead bodies ever.
You'll be an assassin, just not the cleanup crew.
Yeah. I'll touch them while they're living. Immediately when that soul is gone, I am out. Don't want to see them, smell them, nothing. Yeah, anyways, anything else about Haunting of Hill House before we kind of wrap up? Anything else you guys wanted to talk about or dying to get out there?
Daniel? Can I call you Dan?
Yeah, absolutely.
Who was your favorite storyline out of all the family members?
Oh, my favorite storyline. I think I liked. I think sort of what you guys were talking about. I think Luke and Nell were, I think, the best actors, some of the best written characters, and the most dynamic in as far as like our viewpoints of them. I like them the most. I think the one that I just hated was I can't remember her name now. Weird housekeeper lady.
Oh yeah.
I didn't think she was a good actress. I didn't think.
Yeah, her performance is rough.
It's a weird. Yeah.
She also, I was like, this seems like the call went out for like a 70-year-old to play this, and like a 40-year-old showed up, and they're like, we'll go with her. Like, she just seems so much. She seems like she's trying to play so much older, and they just didn't have the makeup crew there to make her like do the age makeup on her.
Yeah.
It just didn't. Everything about her didn't work for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that whole wrap up of that with the story with her daughter and everything, all of that felt just a little weird, just because I couldn't get out of my head. Like,
She comes around pretty quick on that.
Gosh, yeah. They're very quick to be like, listen, we get it. This house is crazy. We'll bury our dead daughter. Just leave us in this empty house so we can come hang out.
Yeah.
No one knew about her because we locked her away all these years. It's fine.
Weird.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's like one of those things where, like, in the moment, you're like, and then like a second later, you're like, oh, hold on. Sorry, what was that? You'll bury your dead daughter between your garage and your house because there's a tree she like? Okay, sure. Yeah.
Sure.
And you're not going to tell anyone. Okay, yeah. Sure.
Like, okay, secret window. I see you. Plant some
Eating
corn.
Ah, what a great movie.
But yeah, I didn't like her. I loved the idea of like the circular nature of time, and I think that the whole way that this series was structured supported that so beautifully. Like, and sort of like that connection with Arrival that you were saying, the idea that like time is not a linear thing, and they highlighted it so well by I feel like one of the most impactful monologues at the end of this series was Nell's that she gave to her siblings, which was beautiful to me, that like it was done in the way where like she gave it and it made no sense, and then she started up again and it just synced in, and I don't know, everything about it was just like, and she even went back and repeated earlier parts of the conversation but had a new context in that time where she had synced up again. Like everything about it just, I feel like, I don't know, was so effective in like wrapping up the whole idea of that series, which I thought was really beautiful. And she delivered it so well.
Yeah. She's really great. I really liked her a lot. Cool. Well, awesome. We'll go watch Haunting of Hill House if you haven't. We've spoiled it all. So if you got to this point and haven't, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. But if you want to complain about us spoiling it before you watch it, you can email us at rewatchersonthepod@gmail.com or hit us up on Twitter at rewatcherspod, or follow us on Instagram and bug us there at rewatcherspod. We're going to take a brief break. Oh, next week, let me tell you what we're doing next week, in case you're not going to stick around. We are going to be watching the movie you have been hearing about for years, I'm sure. From 1990, directed by Stuart Gordon, his famous Robot Jocks. We're going to be joined by Soren Budge, who is introducing all of us to what I can only assume is going to be one of the defining cinematic experiences of our life. So join us. Go find a copy of Robot Jocks and then join us next week, and let's unwrap it together. But yeah, we'll take a brief break and be back with some recommendations. Enjoy these sweet tunes. Welcome back from the musical interlude. We are here to talk about the other things we've been watching this week, and that we recommend that other people check out. So I'll start. This week I watched several movies. I found out that I have free rentals now from a video rental place near my apartment, and I got way too many movies and then forced myself to watch all of them. So I'm just gonna briefly go through those. I watched a couple of movies that have been on my list for a really long time. The first one is Dogtooth, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. It's like his breakout movie. He also directed The Lobster and Killing of a Sacred Deer, and The Favorite. Last year?
Last year.
Mm-hmm.
Feels like a decade ago, which is when Dogtooth came out. And you already know if you want to see. If you've seen, I would definitely not watch Dogtooth first if you haven't seen any of those other movies. But check out those other movies, and if you were like, it wasn't weird enough, go rent Dogtooth. I really don't know how to feel about it. But I also watched Mother, not the Darren Aronofsky Mother, but the Mother directed by Bong Joon-ho, also from 10 years ago, who recently directed Parasite and Okja and what's the train one? Snowpiercer. Those movies. But that is a crime thriller about a mother who is trying to help her son who's been falsely accused of a crime. And if you haven't seen any Bong Joon-ho stuff, he is a master as far as like thrillers go and just creating tensions and scenes and stuff. And he's really interesting. But yeah, I definitely recommend that. And then the last one I wanted to talk about, I went and saw The Irishman, which is a new Martin Scorsese movie that is coming out on Netflix, I think next week, and has just been in theaters. It's like, I think it's 3 hours and 42 minutes long.
Wow.
It's
I didn't know it was that long.
essentially, it is very long. But yeah, it's coming to Netflix, so you can pause it and take
Was there an intermission when you saw
There
it?
was not, no. Which is funny because, like, a couple weeks ago, me and Josh went and saw The Godfather 2, which is like 3 hours and 20 minutes, and there's a great intermission in there where they give you a break to stretch. I did not get that. But if there's one thing I can say about The Irishman, it's like, I didn't feel like I wanted to take a break at any point.
Okay.
It's a really fantastic movie. It's one of my favorite types of movies where it's like, let's get some guys who are really good actors and just watch them talk to each other for 3 hours. And occasionally we'll put a scene of like someone dying in it. It's really interesting. It's about, if you don't know anything about it, it's about, it is kind of centered around Jimmy Hoffa, who I knew by name and knew that he had like disappeared mysteriously. But I didn't really know anything else about him. And so this movie is kind of about that. And we also get a great performance from Joe Pesci, who hasn't been in a movie in I think over 10 years. He'd kind of retired and came out of retirement for this movie, and he's really delightful. And I love Joe Pesci, and you should watch The Irishman when it comes to Netflix for sure. Dan, what about you? Do you have anything to recommend for us?
Yeah, let's see. I'm trying to think of what I've been watching recently. I rewatched. I watched Late on the Train, but I watched Russian Doll. I really like that on Netflix.
Yeah.
I've been meaning to watch that.
I like that one. Maniac was really good on Netflix.
I love Maniac.
yeah, I like
so
Maniac
much.
a lot.
Yeah.
Is Russian Doll Scarlett Johansson?
No, it's Natasha Leone.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm thinking. I think of
It's-
Under the Skin. Is that Scarlett Johansson?
That
Under
is-
the Skin
yeah,
of Scarlett
Under the
Johansson.
Skin.
It's sort of a Groundhog's Day, sort of.
Okay. Yep. That's right.
And I think all of its trailers, like, people sort of gave it passed on it because it just seemed like it's a reworking of Groundhog's Day.
Yeah.
But it does some stuff in really clever, surprising ways that I really liked.
I will say about Russian Doll too. Like, I had seen Natasha Lyonne in I watched the first 2 seasons of Orange Is the New Black, and I was like, she's pretty good. She is so good, and Russian Doll made me really love her as an actress. She is phenomenal.
I guess
in that
she's
show.
not everybody's piece of cake, though. Like,
For
if
sure,
you don't like
for
her,
sure.
then like you won't like this.
Yeah, definitely. It is all her.
It is all her.
It is all her.
Being very her. The Farewell. I saw that with Awkwafina, and that surprised me. I think that's probably my favorite movie of the year so far. Awkwafina is a surprisingly good, honest actress that, like, I really loved her portrayal in that film.
Yeah.
It was a really great movie. I'm trying to think of anything else. This is across the pond, but there's this show that I've been binging through called Taskmaster, and it's a game show, but
Okay.
the Brits really know how to do like these panel game shows where they bring on comedians rather than bringing on like regular like people, and they just throw shit at them and have them do the stupidest things, and they give them in the show they give them these tasks to do, and just seeing how like these comedians like how their brains work and how they think of how to do these tasks, like it's the funniest thing in the world. So look that up. It's called Taskmaster.
Okay,
It's really
cool.
funny.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Riley, what about you? Any suggestions for us?
I have a couple. Last week I saw Doctor Sleep. and I really
Directed by
enjoyed that.
Mike Flanagan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who did Hill House. Cool.
Yeah, and so it was fun watching that, and then finally finishing Hill House because I could see a lot of like parallels within the two. I really enjoyed Doctor Sleep. I know that some people don't super enjoy it, but I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
Like
Excited
it was
to
a
see
good horror movie. I liked it.
What?
Is it you that doesn't really enjoy it?
Oh no, I haven't seen it.
no.
No.
No, that was
no
like a
people.
passive aggressive
Here-
like.
no,
Some people.
that is something Riley would do sometimes, but not this time, surprisingly. No, I feel like the main criticism I see from it is like, well, Mike Flanagan's not Stanley Kubrick, so
Yeah.
it's like, no one is.
Like no one's that.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. And then this week on Thursday night at 10:40, I saw Frozen 2, and it was wonderful.
Why didn't they call it Frozen again? Is she not frozen again?
Refrozen.
Refrozen.
Unthawed.
Frozen, reheated.
Freezer burn.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
So that sounds
delightful.
like a ringing endorsement of the string of puns that we just
Yeah.
attached to the Frozen too.
It's so good. If you like the first one, you'll probably like this one. The music's really good. There's one song in it that is like heartbreaking. It's so good, and yeah, it's a fun one.
I assume it's like the same, that team. I cannot remember their names, but I see their
Yeah.
faces from the Oscars.
They sang because they sang their like speech at the Oscars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was delightful. I love
It was
them.
so cute.
Yeah, they're great.
Is this going to be like as defining as Frozen 1?
Justin wants to know if he has to.
Well,
Just has
the
two
thing
young
is, like,
kids.
I'm going to go see it probably this week, so just kind
Am
of
I
need to
gonna
know
watch
what
it
I'm getting
10,000
into.
times?
Yeah.
I think it was more appealing to me like as an adult because of things they did like visually with it. Like there are some parts of it that are like really beautiful and really like I don't know, just like powerful.
I've heard like the things that they've done with water are just
Yeah,
insane.
the
in this.
water is crazy in it. It's so cool. I think it could get to the point of the first one, but I don't know if it will like punch little kids in the face like Let It Go did. You know? Like, that one really just
Damn.
Just play it one more time. I gotta get this monkey off my back.
We gotta start giving chips to kids. Like, you didn't ask for Lego for 60 days. Good for you. Well, good. I'm glad to hear. That sounds great. Tyler, what about you?
I don't really have a whole lot new. I do have a follow up.
Sweet.
Don't play Death Stranding because you'll never be as good at it as I am. I am the best delivery man the post-apocalyptic world has ever seen. You don't stand a fucking chance. I find paths no one finds, and I do my deliveries quicker than you ever will. So don't even bother applying for the job because I'm the guy.
Kojima, you wanted to bring the world together. You're tearing us apart with these delivery wars.
But no, I'm still really enjoying it. I don't know. I mean, I do know why some people don't like it, but it's definitely a great game for me, and I really love it.
Yeah.
And I think Justin wants to talk about The Mandalorian a bit, but I've been watching that too. So
Yeah. Should we talk about Mandalorian?
Yeah, Mandalorian.
Right here.
We're on. Are they calling them chapters? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Saga 3. I don't know.
Yeah.
Chapter 3 was just released this week.
They should have called them Mandalores, like Lore, like lore, like here's the next part of the lore. You know, I'm just bitching this.
Manda in like parentheses, really
Manda.
small italicized.
lore, yeah, and then Roman numeral italicized also, just the number that we're on because that's what they do in Star Wars. So I don't know, do it. Okay, go ahead. What's it about? So Mandalorians, never mind. Please go ahead. I can't speak to this.
So I don't really consider myself like a really big Star Wars fan. Like I've watched the new Star Wars movies. Like I watched Episode 7, Episode 8 one time each. I think I saw Rogue One like. That's what that one's called, right?
Yeah.
That shows you how big of a fan I am.
that is
answers all of our
a
questions.
one of them.
That's I've seen that one the most. I've probably seen that one 4 or 5 times. I haven't seen the Han Solo movie, so like I'm just kind of like indifferent at this point. But Mandalorian actually, I feel like has kind of recaptured Star Wars from my childhood a little bit for me. Like it
Cool.
feels. it feels different enough. It's a story that, I mean, is separate from the Skywalker stuff. I mean, we've got Yoda in there kind of, so it's sort of tied into things that are going on, obviously. But so yeah, it's kind of been like a really good, fresh breath for me. Like it's a breath of fresh air. There we go. Yeah, I'm having fun. The latest one had a bunch of Jawas in it and a sandcrawler, and that shit was what I loved when I was a little kid.
That's the last one you watched?
I think so.
Oh, so you've only seen 2 episodes. There's a third one out.
Pretty sure. Was that
the Jawa Sandcrawler one? Is
okay? I'm just getting mixed up then. Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I have watched all 3 of them, but yeah. Anyways,
the third one is the Western Shootout,
right?
With Carl Weathers doing Carl Weathers stuff.
Yeah. And then the flying Mandalorians, right?
Getting a stew going, baby.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, watching episode 3 especially, after like every line he leaves these pauses, and I'm like, my head just fills in. Baby, you got yourself a stew going. And oh my goodness, I hate him in this show. He's not good. And
I think I want my money.
Oh my gosh, that too. Every time like it cuts back to the Mandalorian, I just wanted to be Tobias's face, like him take off his helmet. Just like, I think I want my money. There's ups and downs for me in the show. As a huge Star Wars fan, there's things I absolutely love and things I absolutely hate. And I don't think we'll ever escape the heavy-handedness Disney now will bring to Star Wars, which are the things I hate the most about it. And Carl Weathers is the king of heavy-handed in this episode, especially. I didn't really like have any opinion on him after the first episode, but this third episode, I'm like, I'm done with him. I think we can move on.
Yeah.
But yeah. But you're really liking it, Justin.
I am, yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
Cool.
Thoughts on Baby Yoda?
I got a lot of thoughts on Baby Yoda. I don't know if we have time for my thoughts on Baby Yoda.
Meme of the year. Meme of the
The Tesla truck is up there right now.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So good.
I mean, I did send you that one. That was the combo of Baby Yoda and so I think you should leave.
Oh, the Baby of the
The
Year.
Baby
Yeah.
of the Year.
Which I just heard that song in my head for days after you said that. Baby of the Year.
But yeah, you know, like I couldn't tell if you like know just from your brief sentence, like you know that's not Baby Yoda, right?
Right, yeah,
okay,
I know
okay,
that.
just wanna
Yeah.
make sure. That's a big deal for Star Wars people. Like a lot of like the casual fans don't really know. Even like the hardcore nerds don't know that like the name of Yoda's race. Like that's never been revealed even before Disney owned it in any of the books or anything. And so I think I told you before, I find it hilarious that the most hardcore Star Wars nerds and my mother both have to refer to it as Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
Because nobody knows.
So what you're telling me is it's the great unifier.
Yes, exactly.
Bringing together people from all walks of life.
But yeah, it's really weird to see like Jon Favreau's style, and Dave Filoni's also a big part of it. And Dave Filoni has always been in charge of like the animated Star Wars series, which I don't like those very much. I think there's good things about them. I don't get why Star Wars fans love them so much, to be honest. But it's interesting to see his fingerprints all over this because it is these half-hour quick adventures. They kind of have like a similar. He's really good at flow. His little short stories, they might not be my favorite, but they flow really well, and that's definitely there.
Interesting. Yeah, I still haven't watched it, but since you did mention the music, I was like, I want to look up who did the music. It's Ludwig Göransson, who won an Oscar for Black Panther last year, but that started on Community.
Oh,
Started doing music for Community, and
he made a good mix
it's a great show.
for Community.
Yeah, for sure. It's great.
If he's the one that's like all that. His mixtape was really great.
Yeah, it's really good. But yeah, all right. Well, those are. Oh, do we have any more? Do we want to talk about the Secret Hitler?
Yeah, we could. You want to talk about Secret
I
Hitler?
want to talk about the Secret
I
Hitler
have
so
one real
bad.
brief one that no one else is going to think is funny. But I do want to. I didn't think I said thank you enough. We had a podcast Thanksgiving dinner yesterday where we all got together. We had Thanksgiving. Justin smoked a turkey, and I recommend Justin smoked turkey.
It was the biggest
sounds
bong
kinda
I've
weird.
ever seen.
That turkey was smoked good.
But it was really good, so thank you for making that.
was very
And if you can ever
good.
swindle Justin into making a smoked turkey, then do it.
Yeah, so then after that, we went and played Secret Hitler, which If you don't know what Secret Hitler is, it's basically like Werewolf or Mafia, but with a couple more rules and some
Hitler.
structure. What?
And Hitler.
And Hitler, yeah. And it's basically you're split into liberals and fascists, and you just fight. And it's so fun.
never
It does
played
not
this.
sound like the type of thing. Like, even describing it now, I'm like, I don't want to play that. But holy shit. We've played it maybe twice over the last, like, 6 months or something. I don't know, like, somewhere in there.
Out of all those times, we've probably played 6 or 7 rounds of it.
Yeah.
And I have been Hitler for 5 or 6 of them. I could not believe last night when I drew it again. I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And the times I wasn't, I was always a fascist. Like I was never a liberal in that game until the last round last night. And I was like,
funny.
I still played it like I was Hitler. I didn't know how to play it.
I did not be Hitler at that point. But yeah, it is really fun. It's just one of those. It's one of those games with everyone has kind of these secret identities and motives, and it's just kind of bullshitting around and trying to hide while trying to expose other people. It's really, really fun. Definitely recommend it. And it's another one of those things where it's like the game, just like the art on the box is like so satisfying. So even if you're not going to play it, you just want something to look good on a shelf, go buy Secret Hitler. It's real good. Real good. But yeah, I think that's it. Anyone else final thoughts or anything? Okay. Well, we will see you next week. Like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be watching Robot Jocks. Jocks with an X. I didn't mention that before. That will be important, too, when you're searching for it, because other than that, you're just going to get a bunch of pictures of NFL players that people think are doing steroids. So we'll dive into that next week. I cannot wait. But until then, signing off, this is Tyler Harris.
Riley Harris.
Tyler McKinley.
Justin Hammer.
And thank you so much to our special guest, Dan Anderson. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We hope to have you back many times.
Would love it.
Okay, great. We got him! Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.